Hello, everybody. How you doing? I'm over here with Uncle Jeff. Hope you guys are ready. We're here to give you a little bit of a rundown on,
Give it a four
just
one one and the 5x5.
that's absolutely right. All right. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of minutes to get in here. How you guys doing? Okay, we're talking. What's the chat say? Song "Monkey Business" by Skid Row. Yeah, I remember that one of their songs. I remember one called oh my god, 18 and Life to Go. I
Uh,
remember that one. Let me see who else is in the chat. Thanks for dropping by, Joliet. Dominic Spencer. All right, let's go. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys. Someone is here for the monkey business. There we
uh,
go. Thank you very much, Marie. I'm sorry we couldn't make it here yesterday, folks. I kind of screwed up. I said the wrong time. That's
we
on
had
me.
a technical difficulty. We're here now.
Technical difficulties, like monkeys are not good at reading watches. That's a big problem. We're terrible at it. But we're gonna get the show going because we really want to get into it. Now we're gonna talk about the 5x5. For any of you who don't know, I'm gonna give you the simple version. For 5 days, we spent $5 billion going out there like Tommy Lee Curtis, getting every in-house, outhouse, doghouse, hen house, chicken house, guard house, police vehicle, army vehicle, anti-aerial, ancient guns that they still have, anything they still have, and you hit it with everything. All right.
So it's a very
Now
high intensity. Go ahead.
I'm gonna give the floor. Oh, let me put that back up. I'm gonna give that the floor over to Jeff to explain a little bit, and I'm gonna play your questions. You're gonna have questions in the chat,
Mm.
and I myself, if I have a question that I think you guys might have in the future, for when you see this video in the future, I'm gonna try to ask it. All right, floor is yours.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to Monkey's stream. We're going to just go over some of the specifics and nuances that define the 5x5 strike package that was sent up the chain, developed by me. What it essentially is a very high intensity, very time compressed mass strike against all the regime remnants, elements like repressive elements, things that they would use to hold on to power inside Iran. It was envisioned to sit there and bring a very rapid close to the current conflict and set up the intrastate environment inside Iran to provide Iranian resistance a very easy path towards liberating their country and do so in a manner that conserves all of our critical long range offensive and or defensive munitions. In other words, we're using munitions that are plentiful. So you kind of have
When you say
a here
intrastate, you mean like Tehran
inside
to any
Iran.
other state, so
Well,
they
I'm saying
can't
with
move
inside Iran.
with inside Iran, but just so they can't move from one side to the other,
Oh
so
no,
they
they're all
can't.
dead. If they do
They would
this
all be.
in
Okay,
120 hours, the regime would be dead.
okay. And just so everybody knows, it's 5 days, $5 billion.
Mhm.
Okay,
So we kind of the basic overview in 5 days. It leverages all of the U.S.'s heavy bombers and the max capacity that we can. You're going to drop. You're going to service 28,719 precision aim points or targets. You're talking about dropping 14.35 million pounds of high explosives. You're going to use 168 tactical fighters that are in theater. Uh, it's pretty. This is like nothing like this would ever have been. This would be a first time in like recorded human history that this kind of mass precision guided strike would be done in such a short amount of time. The idea is to hit them with so much shock. So this is kind of a little bit more involved in what the munitions would be, what they're like, how destructive power is, generated, what are the target sets.
all right.
So Wait a minute. There we go. Yeah. So again, it's meant to eliminate the Mullah regime remnants and conserve critical munitions and free strategic assets for other theaters. The whole point is this, is that the desired end state for us, given the inelastic nature of the Mullah regime's motives, because it's pseudo-theologically motivated, they believe they're going to, Baba Yaga land if they die killing the infidel. There's really no, in other words, there's very little low order. I could say with the highest human certainty it possesses the lowest order of probability that you'd ever sit there and have them subscribe to a deal in any kind of manner that would result in sustained positive behavioral change. That's defined as them changing their internal end state that they desire. They may change their behavior superficially for a minute and just use that to try to reconstitute their capability and keep pursuing the goal that they're probably never going to concede. You can see that now with what Ali and Armin say is the Hormuz circle, or the Hormuz circle or cycle. Go ahead. You want to say something?
I wanted to kind of not dumb it down, but simplify. These people are not going to change their mind. The ones who believe are ready to die. The ones who don't believe will do anything to hold on to power. The way I expressed it earlier in other shows is like the worst case scenario is that they do accept the deal, but then and they give up the nuclear dust and they let us inspect whatever we want, but they spin up 1,000 Wuhans. Like they're not going to turn into good guys. There's something, the word that you use, sustained behavioral change. That's not going to happen. They're not going to, in any sustained manner, they're not going to change their ways. So whatever happens, their biggest detriment right now, the big thing against them is number one, that they're hanging on to nuclear. The day they let that go, and if they just, sure, whatever you want.
They pursue an alternative WMD profile, in this case, advanced synthetic bioweaponry, which is a lot harder to detect, a lot easier to make. I mean, Sketch
so
is right.
When he says synthetic bioweapons, he's talking about making 100 COVIDs, 100 different types of viruses that take over the world. They show you on TV a patient, show him becoming ill and dying, and say, I have so many warheads here. If you don't do what I say on the straight, if you don't give me a toll, I'm going to release this all over the Middle East, and before you know it, it's all over the world. So give me what I want. Right?
Or maybe if they're inelastic, they just do it no matter what.
They may not even need a warhead. They could just infect a bunch of
coughing on people's door handles and shaking hands. That's right.
And you can have people that deliberately infect themselves and travel because they don't, because there are people. There are people that do believe in the apocalyptic nature, and they, you don't want these people to hold power because of that, because of their apocalyptic nature. Even the ones that want to hold power can use the ones that are true believers.
Okay.
Right.
Let me go through the whole slides, though. All right. And then it would just be easier.
I just want to communicate the urgency of getting rid of these people.
Oh, absolutely. So, and again, if for anybody who is, look, this is not hypothetical. Islamic fundamentalists have already leveraged like infectious diseases, not the least of which was HIV. In Africa, you had Islamic fundamentalist terrorists. I think it might have been the John Dewey that had sent in HIV-infected women into African Christian strongholds to then have unprotected sex and leverage the lack of health care or development of those areas. And subsequently, HIV is kind of a weapon of genocide. Indeed, there are a Russian mob that use HIV-infected hookers to erode the confidence of competing brothels. So, I mean, it's super fucked up to say. It's just that's the world we live in, and that was like what the Islamic fundamentalist terrorists did in Africa. That was like easily, Jesus, that was almost 20 years ago. Holy shit! Yeah, this has been around for a while. So Sketch is not wrong when he talks about the urgency of it, or that these actors would not do that. Indeed, after the terrorist attack of September 11th, I'm old enough to remember. Again, forgive me, Amu Jeff is old. When we were very concerned about like Islamic fundamentalist terrorists leveraging or weaponizing smallpox, and we didn't have enough bifurcated needles, and we had to do this crash program to build all the like smallpox vaccinations and all this other stuff. And that's a much longer discussion. All that to say, The idea of leveraging infectious diseases and or bioweapons as a alternative attack form of attack against their adversaries is not something new, and Islamic fundamentalist terrorists and actors around the world have indeed done that. Synthetic bioweaponry is uniquely lethal, particularly those that leverage things like mirrored life, because it has a different protein code. Like, so you either have left, like I think it's either all life on Earth has left leaning or all life on Earth has right leaning protein, orientation, like for their molecules, and synthetic life or mirrored life has the opposite. And what it kind of means is that traditional immunity doesn't work. That's actually very dangerous. I mean, the naval intelligence has talked about the age of synthetic bioweaponry. There's been numerous papers written by any number of people of USARMED and intelligence agencies, intelligence community, and the medical community about the threat of mirrored life being weaponized by terrorists. In any case, all that to say that Sketch is very, very much on the money with regards to the urgency of eliminating the Mullah regime remnants so that we can sit there and move on to other threats. So before they even get their hands on or have materialized, say, potentially pursuing alternative means of weapons of mass destruction like bioterrorism, there's another issue here. It's also to free strategic assets for other threats. Like, so
Yes.
when you think about the threat that the Mullah regime poses.
I wanted to just touch on one more thing.
All right.
There is another
Get
threat
me
that
off
they
my
pose.
Sorry.
The
Go ahead.
political threat. They will stoop to anything, even marry their brother to get him into the country.
Oh,
The
sure.
political threat, it may be funny. We were talking about Ilhan Omar marrying her brother, but these people do get into politics. They do flip places. They do cheat. They do anything to get in power. And while we have the political will to do this, that's another point that should be pointed out. Like, you kid, you just. But now that we have the right political power in place to do this, that's absolutely another reason that why it should be done now.
Strike while the national will is there. Very true.
Exactly.
Right. So it's to free strategic assets for other theaters. There's numerous different area hotspots that constitute an unacceptable risk of escalatory war prior to, in the past 10 years. And the 5 major ones were Putin's increasing belligerency into the intermarium. That means Central and Eastern Europe. Chinese Communist Party invading Taiwan. Mullah regime and now regime remnants pursuit towards WMDs, particularly nuclear weapons and or now alternative WMD profiles. The North Korean regime and the insecurity flows out of Syria. They all constitute a unacceptable risk of escalatory war. All of those areas are now active, which means that we have to. These aren't just separate wars, right? Mullah regime in the Middle East, Putin in Ukraine, China comes in Taiwan. All those actors are coordinating their efforts, and it would be very beneficial for the United States, our Gulf and Israeli state allies, or the United States-led Western Alliance to finish up a threat in one region, in this case, the Middle East and the Persian Gulf, by eliminating the Mullah regime remnants, so that way all those assets that we have deployed there can now be deployed to other areas to deal with those threats. That's what that means. So what is 5x5? The 2 major components, it's comprised of 2 major components or tranches. You have the heavy bomber aspect, which is the strategic hammer, and you have the 4 deployed strike aircraft relentless blade. And they kind of work in conjunction with each other to both ensure a massive amount of shock as well as persistent pressure, so the regime remnants has no real way to, catch its breath, adapt. I'm going to go into each one of these. So the strategic hammer. It centers around, so we have about 75, 80 mission-capable heavy bombers that are split between B-1Bs, B-52s, and B-2s. Of this, all of them would be used again, in support of this overall campaign. Their use would be split up into 10 waves that are synchronized or, that are alternate between high intensity and low intensity pulses. High intensity pulse, 60 bombers, you're talking about dropping quite a few ordnances in one wave. That's meant to have strategic shock. They fly back. You have the low wave 20 bombers kind of going while the 60 bombers are rearming. They hit. 60 bombers come back. They go and do that for 10 distinct waves. You're talking about just with the strategic, the heavy bombers alone, assess destruction of the target sets, which are straight commutes, denial network, command and control, leadership decapitation, air bases, air mobility, and conventional forces. Like 98 to 100% of the Strait of Hormuz, all the regime and remnants, elements in the Strait of Hormuz is obliterated. Aviation helicopters, roughly about 95% of that, including all of their infrastructure. Regime and IRGC leaderships decapitated down to the lieutenant level by about 85 to 90% with just the bombers alone. While
Now,
the bombers
would
are,
have a
let me
question
finish.
here.
Let me finish. So so while the bombers are flying back to their bases, the Relentless Blade is the forward-based air power, which is the strike aircraft in region that are be pulling off their max sorties every day. So you're talking about servicing 2,204 aim points every day to maintain the pressure while bombers are in transit, either back to their bases and or en route for another strike. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Okay, so when you're talking about aim points, right? If you're doing 2,000 aim points a day, this is
That's
this is
2,000 targets.
2,000 targets. All right, so we know what these targets are already.
Yep.
And when you say high intensity, we're talking about, okay, high intensity is going to be mountains, it's going to be bunkers, or is high intensity about the
Oh no, high
location?
intensity is the amount of targets that are hit within a very specific amount of time. So all 60 bombers converge on their targets. There's an extreme strike compression and time on target, meaning in 15 minutes you have like 6,000 targets that get deleted. It means the enemy has no time to respond. This is why President Trump said, if I pull the trigger, we're ready to make something go beyond anything in operation, epic fury, and there's nothing they can do about it. This is kind of what he's talking about.
So high intensity means too fast to react to, and then low intensity would be like now that all these targets couldn't react and got hit.
Relatively lower, yeah.
Lower. I mean, yeah, lower. What happens during the lower intensity wave? Those targets are
So,
probably farther away,
nope.
or is it
So the
more about
Relentless
the
Blade are
type?
the strike aircraft that are forward based inside the region, carry out 2,200, service 2,200 targets a day to maintain a very high level of pressure. That's extremely high, even just in and of itself. So there is no pressure let off by the Mullah regime remnants, none. They have no time to recoup, to adapt, to call their buddy, none of that. This is meant to be extremely, extremely, like the scope, scale, and intensity of this campaign is like probably something it's never been seen in like recorded human history. No constraint left unresolved. So this is a huge lift, to be sure. You're talking about like how much can we do? It's not just like, oh, I have bombers. It's not just bombers, right? So neophytes talk about tactics, informed people talk about logistics, and those are things that you have to take into account when you're designing a campaign like this. So if you're thinking about, okay, we have the bombers and the munitions to do, we definitely have enough fuel and logistics pipeline with all the different aerial refueler tankers to do it. We have enough GPS space and bandwidth to service all the GPS guided munitions on target. You're going the two main bottlenecks that were looked at and resolved was munitions bottlenecks, because I'll get into that in a little bit. You have these like GPS guided, even though we have like 250,000 of them, we have 250,000 GPS guidance kits. That's like the floor. The ceiling's like maybe 370 something thousand. It's a range. It's not exactly declassified because, well, it's not actually known publicly because it's classified information. That's the range though, ish, right? You have to assemble them. So, we only have so many assembled, so many forward based. We're going to get into that in a minute. That's actually very doable. And that's this campaign operates within this constraint. The other issue is the human bottleneck, particularly pilot fatigue and flight deck crews. I mean, those guys, people get tired. They're not robots. So there's only so hard you can push people for so long. So this campaign operates within these two constraints. So what's the main issue? What is one of the main advantages of this?
I had a question here, if I may.
Go ahead. Yep, absolutely.
Now, when we're talking about targets, we would imagine that some of these targets are below ground, right? We're talking Isfahan, Natanz, and these type of targets. Now, I had a question yesterday. How do we know what's down there? One question in particular was like I think it was Natanz and Pickaxe is very close. How do we know they're not connected underground? Now,
They
I
might be.
suspect they might be, but I suspect we would know because you could probably enlighten us on the kind of ground penetrating radar that we have, on the kind of ways that we have just by dropping bombs and studying the resonance on the ground, that we would be able to. You're smiling because you know I'm right. I saw this in the Godzilla movie. I'm not a genius. No, King Kong movie. King Kong. You hit the ground with a bomb and you study the reverberations and you can kind of tell what's under the ground. I would be wondering if we have some kind of
We definitely have ways.
movie way, like I saw, technology that it's maybe not classified, but just based on open source, we could surmise that it could exist. And we
Well,
could
do the open source
down there.
assessment. And what did it tell you? I mean, I'm
I
sure you
think-
looked it up.
I think we kind of know. I think we kind of know what's out there. And I just want to tell the people when we're talking about these type of strikes, we kind of know what is where, and that's why. Like we would also kind of know, yeah, there's some tunnel places. Like people might ask, well, Jeff, what if they know that it's a 5-day intensity thing and they hide all their stuff and wait? And they're
Well,
going to
that's
say, okay,
because
we're going to
we
wait
have
till
a
they
lot
stop.
of image-based intelligence and or machine intelligence and machine learning that actually tracks dynamic targets. There's a reason Palantir debuted what they did and why Ali was very insightful when he cited it, right? You're leveraging artificial intelligence in the military and operational version of the decision support role, meaning before, so I kind of did a flyby. Prior to the use and proliferation and development of increasingly capable artificial intelligence, machine learning, LLMs, all this other stuff, to act in the military version of the decision support role, a lot of that had almost all of that had to be done by people. So you had people that had to look through all this stuff. They had the people that look at like, okay, I had this flyby. They took a satellite photo of this area. I got a guy with a little monocular and he's looking through at this like little piece of paper and picture and he's trying to determine what each little pixel is and that kind of thing. Sure. And so traditionally that would be very hard to do. I'm actually going to reference the late Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld before he was Secretary of Defense for the second time in a Senate intelligence hearing regarding the ballistic missile and terrorist threat facing the United States. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld was very prescient. He was very right on the money with force transformation. He was also, in many ways, kind of a bear to work for. You know, I liked Donnie a lot. I had a lot of respect for him on his force transformation.
Bit of a hard ass, but the good kind.
Yeah, I mean, this guy ran into the Pentagon to rescue people who were wounded after the Pentagon was hit in the terrorist attack of September 11th. This is not a bad guy. So, in any case, he's giving his testimony, and you know, he's talking to the Senate Intelligence Committee. It was like July 13th at like 1:13 in the morning or some shit. It was weird. Anyway, so you know, then you know, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, for the only one time, before he became Secretary of Defense again, had said, you know, it's true that it's going to take any number of these rogue regimes. This is in 1999, not today. It'll take them 5 years to get to build a bomb and the means to deliver it. And so the problem with that is we don't know when they've started. And so then Democrat Senator Levin leaned forward and said, Mr. Rumsfeld, I don't get it. We have all these wonderful like images, intelligence assets in space. How can we not know? And so what Donald Rumsfeld had said in response was, yes, we have wonderful space assets and we can see any place on the ground in 1-inch resolution at any time we choose. What we cannot do is watch the entire world in 1-inch resolution 24 hours a day around the clock, because that would take thousands of space assets and millions of analysts. So I want to focus on the last part of what he said. Millions of
AI helps there.
analysts. Right. So what that means now with, when people are moving stuff around, though, we don't need millions of analysts anymore because you have artificial intelligence that does that. And that's exactly what Palantir's system showed when it was debuted in Operation Epic Fury, when we were maintaining constant wherewithal and eyes on and, and tracking dynamic targets, meaning targets that are moving and trying to hide, and they change where they are, and so there's a you have to change where they go, and yeah, absolutely, we absolutely will know where those things are. I promise you. So the targets that are looking: hardened facilities, command and control, air defense, airways, logistics depots, energy industry, not because we're punishing Iranian people, only to deny the regime the ability to coordinate any effort in attempts to adapt. What's the overall benefit of this, though? It leverages the elements of our arsenal that we can replace very quickly and have a very deep magazine depth. Like I said, we have 250 to 370,000 GPS guidance kits and hundreds of thousands of 500-pound bombs. This is not.
When you say kit, you mean we can adapt it to different types of weapon of
the GPS
armament?
kits are the things you strap on the bomb, on a dumb bomb or just a gravity targeted bomb, to turn it into a smart bomb. I'm going to get into that when, like, in a couple of slides.
And you can patch it on. You can hook it up to different weight classes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a question here in the chat. It said,
Go
"We
ahead.
fight Iraq for 20 years, but now we run out low on ammo." This is my assessment. I'm going to try to not get pissed at this guy, right? Bobby Newman. I'm going to try to not get pissed. Like, defense is not the same as offense, right? Because a lot of what's gone down is the kind of Patriots, that's kind of like the bigger problem that we have. When we went into Iraq, we were full on going in. We were taking land so they couldn't fire back because they didn't have any land to fire back from. So that's a very, very, very different picture than we have now.
Different types of force projection with different types of desired or pursued end states. That's very true.
It also goes into like the false memory of we lost Iraq or something like that. Like we took Iraq very fast. The problem was the rules of engagement after.
Phase. Yeah.
Yes, the reconstruction phase was the problem.
Military. Go ahead.
And he says, "I know of no war where we ran out of ammo." That's because it's a different war. It's a different time. It's a different place. You can't mix apples and oranges and say, "Well, geez, this apple's very acidic." Well, it's a fucking orange.
I guess what Sketch is saying is that these are two entirely different campaigns that reflect two entirely different types of force projection, with pursuing two entirely different desired end states. Whereas, we in the U.S.-led military intervention to liberate Iraq from the Ba'athist regime, that was one particular campaign that had a very particular end state, which was to try and set up a post-Ba'athist democratic Iraq that would then help spread that idea all throughout the Middle East and provide to people throughout the Middle East a third option instead of just two types of autocracy, either secular autocracies or Islamic fundamentalist autocracies. The reason that we had some of the issues, well, that's a whole nother story. Fuck it, I'll go through it anyway. So, like, the reason we had a hard time in the post-conventional military phase reconstruction efforts of Operation Iraqi Freedom was caused in no insignificant manner to two main issues. One was that the conventional phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom was delayed in the UN for about 6 months, in no insignificant part because non-interventionists forced former President George W. Bush's administration to go to the UN to get a lick'em, stick'em star stuck to their forehead, knowing that the fucking UN was populated with any number of spoilers that had direct financial interest in keeping Saddam in power to the tunes of billions of dollars from backdoor oil concessions for the Oil for Food program. See Kofi Annan and his son as Exhibit A, and provided Saddam and the Ba'athist regime counter-satellite intelligence to help Saddam decentralize all his centers of gravity like Fedayeen Saddam terror troops, Republican Guard, tell them to take off their uniform, put their gun under their fucking bed, and set up to fight a long-term guerrilla campaign after the conventional phase. Saddam knew he was going to get his shit kicked in conventionally. And we did.
Yes.
We kicked their ass. So then we had this protracted initial period of instability. We're like clearing out all the assholes like the Fedayeen Saddam terror troops and the Republican Guard. And that allowed like regional meddlers, right, like the Mullah regime that illegally occupies Iran, to start flooding in insurgents through, say, the Iran-Iraq border via Kirkuk, and Soleimani, may salami be upon him, and kill our buddies with VBIDs via the Al-Quds forces. And not for nothing, those same non-interventionists fucked us again, because we were supposed to hit and eliminate the Mullah regime in 2005. And those same non-interventionists then eroded national will, regurgitating all kinds of lies about how we allegedly didn't find WMDs, and Bush lied. We found thousands of tons of chemical weapons in Iraq. We found 556 metric tons of lower medium enriched uranium in Iraq. It was so hot that you couldn't even burn it in a normal reactor. They had to send it to Canada's CANDU reactor to burn it. The reason that former President George W. Bush didn't say anything with regards to that is because we were still trying to get that shit out of Iraq, and we didn't want Al Qaeda rat to get wind of it and like steal some of that shit. Yeah.
Are you okay? Wait a minute. So what you're telling me is we told Americans this is all about nuclear because we were trying to get chemical weapons out?
No. There was 16 reasons. So the idea that the primary reason for U.S.-led military intervention in Iraq was WMDs is not true. Weapons of mass destruction was number 3 out of 16 stated reasons by former President George W. Bush, as outlined in the White House Reader that was, published a couple of maybe 3-4 days before former President George W. Bush went to the United Nations to make the case for U.S.-led military intervention.
I understand that, but the people only remember that one.
Let me finish. So, it was called Saddam Hussein, A Decade of Deception and Denial, and it gives 16 fucking reasons as to why we had to remove Saddam. WMDs was number 3. The number 1 reason was Saddam Hussein's consistent violation of UN resolutions, not the least of which was UN Resolution 687, Articles 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12 are the ceasefire signed after the first Gulf War.
The Kuwait. Okay, This is the thing. Your average Walmart American doesn't remember or give a fuck about that. They remember WMD was in the news 24/7. That's what they remember.
Yeah. That was one of the issues. I'm not saying it wasn't.
That was one of the issues.
It was not the only one.
Hear me out. One of the things that they repeated was that Saddam had mobile centrifuges all over Iraq, and he was going to start launch nuclear weapons. So when we don't
said
find
mobile bioweapons labs, yeah.
No, nuclear. They said centrifuges. Because I remember this. And the news kept running with that. And because everybody was hearing nuclear, and that's what I think the mistake is right now. Because everybody keeps hearing nuclear when you don't find anything nuclear, right? Or maybe they did. I don't know.
They found maybe most of it. Metric tons of higher medium enriched uranium.
Okay, but they didn't focus on finding
nuclear power.
Hear me out. They didn't focus on finding it. Whoever did find it didn't do the kind of messaging that's important. Like Trump will repeat something to death so everyone remembers it.
Yeah, they couldn't
do it.
That
Bush administration didn't repeat to death. Look at all this enriched uranium. We told you so. So no one remembers that. All they remember is we found some bioweapons, but we didn't find the nuclear that we were told would be there.
Weapons.
We found chemical weapons. Now, I understand this because I understood it when it happened, but the average American has to hear me lay out this case because they would say, yeah, that's what I remember. So we have to tell them, hey,
did the media play a role in pushing disinformation to a road?
I'm sure they did.
No doubt.
I want to simplify it for the people. So what I'm saying here is you remember them saying and implying that it was all about nuclear weapons, that Iran was about to enrich uranium and nuclear weapons. Number one, we did find a whole bunch of uranium. Number two, that wasn't the main point. That was the accelerated point that the media gave to. They were lied now, they lied then. It's not Bush that lied, it's the media that lied. Or maybe they both lied. I don't know. But like in focusing in the message, I wouldn't call it lying, but there was a little bit of lack of focus there. So
Yeah.
now with hindsight,
Contextual lie.
what I'm telling you guys with hindsight is we did find what we were looking for, which was the uranium, and they were stockpiling it. There were WMDs. There was another comment here about us not running out of ammo. We have enough ammo to give to Ukraine. Yeah, but Ukraine also gives us a lot of nice, beautiful toys. So that's kind of like trading. That's not even like we're doing a quid pro quo here.
The other thing is not all ammo is the same. That's again why this slide is here, right? Use the arsenal America can replace very quickly or has a lot of. Preserve the high-end munitions for Taiwan, NATO, and the Western Hemisphere. Having heavy bombers and or strike aircraft leverage GPS-guided 500-pound general purpose bombs that we have hundreds of thousands of, not a very heavy lift at all. Using, say, a third of our TLAMs, our Tomahawk landed, sea-based Tomahawk land attack missiles in the opening strike because we had to, because of time compression, right? The Mullah regime's getting ready to mass launch solid fuel ballistic missiles and drones at our bases, at our Gulf and Israeli state allies. There's intelligence that shows there's a higher medium level of confidence that the Mullah regime was marrying biological warheads to those missiles, like the certain member states of NATO, particularly Western European NATO states, so like Spain and France and UK and Germany, fucked us and didn't let us use our heavy bombers. That meant all of our regional assets had to carry the heavy lift. That meant we burned through a lot more high-end, long-range offensive and or defensive munitions than we would have if we were allowed to use our heavy bombers in the manner that we were envisioning them to do.
It makes me wonder if they got an envelope, like, hey, here you go, delay this so we can go to other munitions.
Right, I definitely wouldn't put it past Starmer. So this is a different approach. This corrects that mistake. Well, not that mistake. This corrects that deficiency caused by, not all of NATO, certain less than supportive elements of NATO. Central and Eastern European elements of NATO, they have been ungodly supportive, and they absolutely have our back. Ukraine, and they're not even in NATO, has our back. Those four countries I named, there's a reason the head of NATO was called to talk to Donald in the White House. And while Donald likes the head of NATO, so do I. He's a good dude. Like, Donald gave him a talking to for a very legitimate reason. You didn't let us use our bases. Well, they 5,000 planes. Yeah, bro. Most of those were tankers, not bombers. So in any case, this corrects that issue. So we can then save the high-end stuff for Taiwan, any contingent in Europe vis-a-vis Putin's aggression towards NATO, or things we may have to do in the Western Hemisphere via Cuba. So it draws down replaceable munitions class, right? Again, this is what I was talking about. Here's your aim points. There's a difference between GBU 38s.
I mean, 1 second, please. In essence, the last slide was saying, hey, we got these cheap bombs. We got a lot of them. We can make them more precise. We're going to use those so we don't run out of the good stuff.
Well put. That is brilliantly put. Right? So GBU 38s, you have a shitload of these. Mature, abundant, rapidly deployable, tons of them. High-end stuff. That means we get to save JRASMs, JRASM extended range, Tomahawks, missile defense interceptors. Well, how does taking out these guys save the interceptors? Because you're killing the person who's giving the order to launch the fucking missile. If you're thinking about missile defense, you can think about it in one of the ways you can think about it, and this is coming from a missile defense guy, someone trained in missile defense and strategic defense. You can think about it in 4 stages. Think about an archer. I'm going to use an archer. It's the best approach to missile defense would be to kill the Fletcher that makes the bow and arrow. In this case, that would be the factories building the missiles and drones, which is why President Trump and CENTCOM rightly targeted those facilities inside Mullah-occupied Iran. If you can't do that, kill the
Missile
archer
cities?
before they
You mean the
kill
missile
the
cities, right?
launcher, which means kill the launcher before they are able to launch the missile. If you can't do that and the missile's in the air, shoot the arrow out of the sky or shoot the missile and drone out of the sky. That's where your missile defense interceptor comes in. If those all fail, hope you have good armor, meaning like fortifications in your bases and our buddies take cover, get under cover. So why is this save missile defense interceptors? Because you're killing the people who are giving the orders to the Fletcher, or in this case, the facilities to build more missiles and drones. If you eliminate the threat and there's no finger to push the button, I'm not really concerned about the button anymore. We can disassemble the button at our fucking leisure.
It's like
What
the
do we
difference
need?
between shooting somebody in the head or the leg.
No, it's kind of like if I know somebody's gonna, like somebody says they're gonna learn how to develop, like to make a machine gun and mill it in their house to shoot you and your family, you go, great, I'm gonna kill you now before you even learn how to fucking do it.
Right.
Right? So what does this mean with regards to our overall stockpile? Like you're talking about maybe between 7.3 and 13.2%. So between 7.5 and 13.5% of our overall JDAM stockpile, like our GPS guidance systems. That's very replaceable, very good. Right? Strategic disarmament. Again, this is kind of like how you were asking, what does it mean? Like, what does that mean? So you have a general purpose bomb. You end up strapping these kits on the bomb. It uses GPS guidance from our GPS satellites to turn a very inaccurate gravity bomb into a brilliant guided munition.
This is stuff we had since Vietnam, right?
Well, so the idea of developing brilliant guided munitions or smart bombs very much
No, I mean the dumb part.
Out of our role in Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had smart stuff then?
What's that?
We had smart stuff then?
Well, you had like the first like proto version of laser guided munitions at the very end of Vietnam, if memory serves me correctly.
But I'm saying like some of these dumb bombs, they're old. They're old as shit. The unguided ones that we could trap the kit to. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those stocks,
these are
they've been around forever. So we can just
Okay.
use the stuff that's old, right? Why? I mean, it still goes bang. Don't get me wrong. This is just turning it, instead of being, just dropping them everywhere. This is like turning each one to a ball peen hammer. So for replenishment, where would you, this is kind of like, it's not just how much you have in your stockpile, in our global stockpile, like, ammunition supply dump, points inside America, like continental United States. You also have to have things in theater. And if this is a lot of munitions that you're using, right? You're actually asking, you're going to probably drain some of those forward-based munitions. So how quick can you replace it? Because maybe Putin or the Chi-Coms or somebody else goes, wow, they burned through a lot of their, GBU 38s, right? They're bingo on those. We should go now, right? Wait, forgive me, Sean, I'm not that asshole. They should go now because we don't have any bombs. Well, how long would it take us to reconstitute? Between 3 and 27 days. 3 days, if you're doing 10 hours a day and you have 60 lines, that's like the quickest we could do it. 3 days, you've already then replenished all your forward-based stocks, so there's no vulnerability. What does it mean? This is a lot easier to replenish or restock in your forward-based areas than building out like thousands of Tomahawks. That's again why this approach is very much, it has a lot more benefits than just fucking constantly launching a couple of cruise missiles. So $5 billion, right?
Give me 1 second. Can you
Sure.
go back to that last one?
Absolutely.
Wish I could. I want to learn how to put it like full screen. I don't know how to like make sure it's like it takes the whole screen.
Oh shit! I had it full screen. I'm sorry. I thought I had mine full screen.
No.
That would be on yours.
No. I have to do it over here to get that full screen. I don't know if you guys see a full screen on. No. Well, that's just for me because I had a question about where he says assembly. Oh, you guys can see it better. Wait. Yeah, okay. I did make it bigger on the screen. Okay.
Good deal.
I think this way works better because you don't really need us in the corner and it gives you a little bit of higher fidelity for what you're showing here. Because we
Thank you.
don't need to
Thank you,
be on
sir.
the screen for this.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about this assembly is rapid mature process. So this little picture here is
Mhm.
great for guiding the people. Like, look, we're taking these old bombs that we probably had since Korea or whenever, and we're putting a tip on it and a tail on it that makes it smart and makes it hit exactly where we want to hit. And we can get a lot of them made depending on how many lines. Like you're gonna see over here that it says 10 lines,
6
20
to 8
lines, and it
minutes per
says
weapon.
how many days.
So 6 to 8 minutes per weapon, 12 weapons in 2 hours, 5 to 30 minutes per configuration. So if you're talking about distributed assembly model to restock or like to assemble additional GBU 38 weapons with GPS guidance systems in replacing the 28,716 munitions that we would expend, you're talking about, these are different timetables with different assembly lines and different hours per day.
Okay.
So you're
Okay.
talking about, max, if you do like a max, like we're going to get it out as quick as possible, 60 lines at 10 hours a day, 3 days, you've assembled enough munitions like GBU 38s with guidance kits to replace every piece of munition that you've used. So in other
Now,
words,
there's
you can go ahead.
another thing I wanted to say is you see how on the bottom you got it at 117? Like you should feel free if you wanna magnify to just get one square or one thing that you're showing.
Oh, like
Like
this?
feel free to magnify and yeah, we're talking about this corner, we're talking about this corner. I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
you to feel free to do that at any time.
Thank you,
I got
Sketch.
you on full
I
screen
can't see
now.
both screens, so yeah, absolutely. You should tell me if it's if you'd like me to zero in on something. By all means, please do so.
Yeah, sure.
So this is kind of what he was talking about, the assembly process per weapon, right? It's very easy to assemble. This is very, very doable. People know how to do this very quickly. If you're talking about how long to get to, to assemble 28,716 weapons to replace the munitions that would be used in this campaign between 3 and 27 days, depending on how many lines of these guys you have working and how many hours a day they're working. Minimum is 3.
And to go 60 lines, just to be clear, we'd have to think something is popping up somewhere else or something, right? Or we
Well, I
need
mean,
to
there's
like
a
do
reason
this
that our
again or something.
so the United States' logistics is,
Just out of an abundance of caution.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like our logistics is one of the biggest advantages we have. That's literally one of the strongest legs that makes us a superpower is our logistics. And that includes doing things like this. This is like more, what is it, munitions and that kind of thing. So $5 billion. That's what it costs. That's the total cost, right? So it's like, let me go here, unit comparison. So we'll do it here, right? This is how much you're talking about replenishing all the munitions to like order new ones from the factory, not just to assemble them. This is
To
essentially the
replenish.
cost breakdown. So bomber and tanker mission support about 836 million, carrier strike group operations 109 million, logistics protection intel 325 million, forest restoration reset 1.174 billion. It's a little under 5 billion. It's like 4.8 something. I just rounded it up to 5 to make it easy. Unit cost comparison. About $89,000. That's a hell of a lot cheaper than a fucking $3 million cruise missile. What do you think?
Oh hell yeah.
Seems like. I want the enemy to go broke while you're killing them. So people say, well, why don't we just do the status quo? The alternative to this is not free. Pauses are not free, right? Even operational pauses, even when you have to do it for very legitimate reasons. President Trump and CENTCOM, and they all did the operational pause for very legitimate and specific reasons. This has a bit more cost upfront. It does so by saving a shit ton of cost immediately after that and further down the road. The cost of not finishing off the Mullah regime is measured in not just like it's measured in our forces having to stay in the area and constantly keep an eye on these douche canoes, right? Patrols and surveillance, interceptions, and shooting down the odd drone or missile, escort and convoy stuff, standoff strikes, repeat deployments for our forces, ground forces, intelligence, the rest of it, maintenance.
Proxies.
Right? Dealing with proxies, absolutely. That's the cost of not finishing. So this is the cost of doing it. That's true. You have pause, you immediately eliminate them. So that's gone. It preserves a lot more than munitions, this cost. It frees up a lot of the forces that we have there because of the threat the Mullah regime has posed for 47 years, increasing threat. So now they can be deployed elsewhere, like to guard Taiwan, to bolster Europe and defend NATO from Putin, to deal with the contingency and eliminate the communist regime that occupies Cuba, right? Either you can spend a 5 days cost must be compared to 5 months or 5 years of unresolved conflict. That's where it boils down to.
I
Finish
also
the
wanted to
fight.
point out something. When we're talking about Cuba, we're also talking about those narco cartels because they're
Absolutely.
terrorist organizations.
That had organization operational ties with Hezbollah, the Mullah regime. They were directly involved in as the execution element of the drug fair campaign that the Chinese Communist Party, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, the Mullah regime wages against the United States. Think of fentanyl, right? So fentanyl, the precursor elements were produced in China via Chinese Communist Party run and or affiliated facilities. They shipped it to Central and South America.
Ghost Fleet, right?
Yes, I mean they definitely used a lot of that too. I'm just saying the Chi-Com shipped all those precursor elements to Central and South America. Narco terrorists turned it into fentanyl and they shipped it across the United States open southern border under the previous administration. Right? They kept the border open. It was really stupid. And killed in doing so, waged a drug fair campaign against the United States that resulted in losing twice the amount of Americans every year than we lost in the entire Vietnam conflict. Imagine that. Twice the casualties of that the United States lost in the entire conflict in Vietnam every fucking year because of fentanyl. Well, yeah.
And of course, fentanyl helped keep the border open, right? Because once you have that much money flowing, you have a lot of incentives.
You buy shit. Yeah, you got it.
You get to buy a lot of politicians, buy a lot of cops, because you got the kind of money from the fentanyl.
Buy a lot of capability to outgun the cops.
Outgun the cops, out-drone them, outdo a lot of things. Not that transporting people isn't profitable, but I don't think it's as profitable as fentanyl.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's the alternative. That's what I mean by the alternative is not free. People think, well, if we just stop now, like then the cost stops. No, the cost doesn't stop. It's just forgive me. It's just
bless you.
Thank you. It's just deferred in other areas that cost a lot more.
Yeah, the long-term cost is incalculable, just like it has been incalculable since the regime rose. We have been hesitant and I would say negligent to not deal with it before.
Yeah.
I think this is a time. I don't think we can wait. And is this last slide?
Opportunity. Nope.
Okay. Thank you. I like very much. I like this style where you can do we have more?
Yeah, we do.
I don't want to. Okay, let's keep going. My bad.
So it's not just the strike. Like 5x5 is not a standalone. The 5x5 campaign that's envisioned is not standalone. There's other supplemental lines of effort that act synergistically with this. What are they? It's recognizing His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi, headed up transitionary government as the official government in exile, so you can have a very smooth transition. It's Operation Sovereign Tide, again developed by yours truly, that looks to liberate all of the oil tankers and Karg Island, deny the IRGC remnants any funds, provide the funds to the official government exile, as well as deflate and insulate the United States and our allies from supply shocks regarding oil. Diaspora-based open source intelligence, it's training. This is a model that was actually done in support of Ukraine's diaspora to help them help Ukrainian defense forces in the region. And it's also setting up and training 20,000 lawful unconventional fighters that can then eliminate the executionary element of the regime and create neo-Savak to secure Iran, a post-Mullah Iran, from external meddlers flooding in people to try and take advantage of what they perceive to be would be the state like a unstable environment.
Okay, so now here we have number 5. I don't know if you want to zoom in. What was 1, 2, 3, and 4? Like number 1, total command and control. Number 2, physical. Yeah, that stuff.
So this is what would happen with the 5x5.
Okay.
This is what the regime remnants would try to switch to, right? Because that's what they'll do. Okay. I mean, 5 to 10% of the hardcore loyalists will abandon conventional warfare. They'll try to engage in guerrilla operations. There's no doubt about it. They'll absolutely do that. So that's why you have these lines of effort. To counter 5 is to counter 4. That make sense?
Yes. I was just kind of wondering. You will have this in school, right? These slides. Absolutely. I don't know if you already. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wanted to link them to this so they could go to your post and kind of like if they want to stop and read it and all that, maybe share it with friends and stuff.
They
and
totally
with the video or.
I've actually posted it on my Twitter too. If you want to go through there, Cincinnati 001 is my Twitter. Yep. So how the two major campaigns work together. This breaks the 5x5 plan breaks the regime's internal coercive system. It crushes, it kills whatever's left of the regime. After 120 hours, if this is done, if 5x5 is done, the regime ceases to exist as a national political body and or military. Like they're done.
They're not cohesive anymore.
No, they would be dead. Like all you'll have is probably 5 to 10% of the executionary element, like the stupid Durka dickheads that they gave AK-47s to. You'll have that. They'll have no leadership, no command and control, no bases, no Pi Day like HQs where besieged rape girls. All that's all gone. No tanks, no APCs, no helicopters, no self-propelled or towed artillery of any type. All the stuff in the Strait of Hormuz is obliterated. Every element of the regime and the IRGC and besieged leadership is decapitated down to the lieutenant level. Like they're done. They're done as like controlling Iran. They're done. This provides this, like Operation Sovereign Tide, OSINT, Letters of Marque, is the economic version of 5x5. This is to shock them economically, and it coordinated, all of this is coordinated vis-a-vis His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi with Iranian resistance, anti-Mullah Iranian resistance on the ground.
You mind if I touch on that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things that we did during the MOU by having them sign it is we had already created escrow accounts. Those escrow accounts are already holding all the oil from the first deal when we allowed them to sell, because when we allowed them to sell, we never gave them any money. We just sold for them and kept the money for them. And because they fired on the Strait, we still have that money. So that money in that escrow account is still belonging to the transitional government when that comes to pass. Now, this will probably mean that the mechanism for Sovereign Tide has already exists right now.
And was done.
Yeah, elements of it are basically the MOU, because that's exactly what the MOU did. Like we said, okay, we're gonna give you an EBT card for corn and hay, right? And you get that EBT card from
any
us.
ships there, IRGC.
Yes.
What did they do?
I guess we keep the money in the card.
That's it.
You
We
understand
just
what I'm saying?
canceled your EBT card. That's what we did.
We just canceled their EBT card, kept the money, but it still has the money in there, and that money belongs to the people. And the people would probably more than gladly support our efforts to reinvigorate through humanitarian aid their city structures. Make sure we vet any supply structures. We would want, a more open, merit-based market, so we could go to, like, let's say, I'm just throwing you, like, this is,
An idea.
throwing
You
everything
spitball.
against the wall,
Yeah.
right? You
Mhm.
take the three biggest cities in the South. I went with this Armin over this art with Armin earlier. You take the three biggest cities in the South.
Sure.
You clear them, right? That's where you get your hunter killers. Send them in, clear. Start vetting. You don't just vet for some Artesh for police and security. You're also vetting some of send these special forces that are trained for civilian
They're going to take
operations.
7 weeks to train, though.
No, but that's military. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just saying who I can vet so that
Yeah.
you can control the logistics. I don't need
Sure.
you to have a gun. You're not getting a gun. I'm just
Or
training
like,
you to be able to receive this
vetted
merchandise
elements
and
of
give it to the
Artesh.
people.
Sure, I get it.
Yeah, like this is not even our test. This is like government people. Like we're
Sure.
training you to keep an eye so that nobody takes the money, and so that you can watch yourself, others can watch you. So you're watching each other, so nobody's taking the money, and you can show transparency to the people when you have these business and placements and you're rendering aid or whatever. Civilian vetting and training, not military, not gun. These people don't get guns. It's completely different level.
Yep.
Civilian operations. So once you have three cities secured, you can keep going farther up and up and up and up. Is what I was kind of discussing with them. But you would need to fund this, and funding it through that, I don't think anybody would mind, because as long as the people get freed, I don't think they'd even care. They're gonna have like abundant resources, and it wouldn't even be it would be a pittance into what would be recovered from Carg Island, what would be what we already have holding and waiting for them within the MOU money we're holding for the people.
Yeah. You'd probably get 14 to 20 billion with all the oil that's on the Dark Sea Fleet and or Carg Island. We control about 2 billion of the 120 to 150 billion dollars of frozen assets. The Chinese Communist Party actually controls the largest share, and it's like spread out over other countries. The point you made, though, is valid, right? The idea is all three of these things work in conjunction with each other to put maximum pressure from every different direction on the regime remnants that would result, probably, at least assessed, the regime would probably collapse in 3 to 8 weeks, more than likely, as things stand right now or at the time that this assessment was done. So turn the regime's oil weapon against it. Yeah.
This would also it would make Gulf partners, the Persian Gulf partners, want to start talking to the transitional government, start
Sure.
trying to make deals, start trying to normalize that situation, because normalizing that situation sooner and helping legitimize that situation sooner will get your foot in the door in any future deals you have with this government. And you would probably want to have good relations with these government, especially just in case, and I suspect whoever takes over the transitional government would probably let us have a base in Pickaxe, a base in Isfahan, a base in Fardo.
Oh, they're definitely they're going to be cooperative with us, almost assuredly. Like His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi and the transitionary government, I find it very hard to believe that they would not be cooperative with the United States.
No, but look at the other part that I'm saying.
Yeah.
Imagine those four become bases that we don't have to worry about NATO. If we have to do anything in the Middle East, we have Isfahan is our base. We control that base.
Yeah.
We have
now the
planes
underground
coming
base
out of there.
That they were using is now our underground base.
Exactly. Like we'd have what we call chat. There's something called dumb bases. These are deep underground
military bases.
Deep underground military bases. If we took the people that designed our dumb bases after, entering and clearing, because these things have to be cleared. We don't know how many booby traps
how they did it.
And let them in, they could do wonderful things with what's there is my guess. If we had
Sure.
dumb bases there, and dumb meaning deep underground military bases there, we would not need Europe so much when we need to project power into the Indo-Pacific, into Africa,
Well, it definitely
into
gives us
anywhere.
another avenue. There's no doubt about that.
It would help a lot, I think, because
Me
you would
too.
take some of the pressure off of Saudi Arabia and having their bases hit. You would take some of the pressure and need to deal with these people. You understand? You
Sure.
wouldn't need so much. I mean, not that we don't like them. We have, hey, guys,
Well,
Saudi
but,
Arabia, the
if we
guys who
take
got
Pickaxe,
bases with
if
us.
you take Pickaxe Mountain, then you turn it into, let's say, a deep underground intelligence center. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to worry about like fucking some terrorist Houthi, Hezbollah, whatever, firing ballistic missiles at above ground intelligence structures that are not as hardened. No, I get it.
Yeah, you don't have to. Jordan wouldn't have to worry about, these places that are getting hit across the Middle East because they have our bases. Some of these locations in the mountains are so isolated and far from civilians that it would protect populations that we can't readily protect in the bases that we have now across the Middle East.
Mm.
Like if we, and I'm not saying we cut them off because we don't like them. We could still have good relationships. But if we could make them have their own base, have their own Abraham Accords, and the reason that the base is there is not because we put a base there, is because they're working with Israel. The Saudis working with them. They're all working with each other, and we're just like a central node in Iran. That'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic. That's my vision. I don't know if
I
it's
know.
crazy, but
No,
it's be nice, right?
It's a cool vision.
You get it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, what is it? My grandfather's generation, my grandfather stormed Omaha Beach. And when they had stormed Omaha Beach, a lot of U.S. personnel then took over the bunkers that the Nazi regime built and turned that into a base of operations. They went, wow, now we're going to use this. Thank you for building these things.
That's the same kind of vision I'm seeing.
I get it.
Okay.
So
I don't want to hold you. If you got more to go, please.
It's so this is kind of like outlines a quick, fast, and dirty overview of Operation Sovereign Tide and or providing letters of marque and having those oil tankers then, so like liberated, taken to a friendly port, either U.S. or our allies, sold on to U.S. or either the United States or our allies, provides the transitionary government money to operate, to do all the other things that they need to do, right? Neo-Savak and all the rest of it. It lowers our gas prices and it denies the regime and those the regime supports. So like Chinese Communist Party teapot industries are now fucked. Right? This is a win for everybody.
Yes.
When we talked about Neo-Savak, this is what was envisioned ish, like an overview, right? 20,000 personnel, 2,500 8-man hunter killer teams, broken down to 156, 158 companies that focus on specific cities to clean them out, whatever's left. Kind of talks about, I can't go into what the training is and all the rest of it. This just gives you a basic organizational structure. That I already showed.
Those are your top cities. With that, that's where you would like basically
100%. This is when people say we need to sit there and like, what if we just drop weapons inside Iran? And, yeah, like there's a lot of different things you need to do if you want to have a very good chance be successful in developing foreign power, particularly in this case, lawful unconventional combatants. So these are some of the things, these are like all the different gates that you would have to do before you even begin to train, arm, equip any of them. It's all
okay. So here I'm gonna need a big favor from you. We need a super big favor. Yeah, zoom in and go one by one because people keep insisting, no, let's just arm them. Let's just arm them. But they don't know, hey, you got to do a lot. And doing a lot means going over these 7 steps of
before you even
am I
get
correct?
to training them and equipping them. And even then,
Okay,
there's
I'm gonna
like,
just let you roll
yeah.
and just take it down because there's a lot. Oh, just drop some guns in there. No, no, no. You have to do this the correct way, and I'm gonna let Jeff go ahead and explain it.
So this was developed as part of the Track 2 material support strategy as both a supplemental effort to things going on at the national level developed by yours truly, and as a operational insurance policy.
When we
Should
say
there
track
be,
two, that means infantry level.
well, yeah, it means like, supporting lawful unconventional combatants. So before you even do that, there's any number of laws, rules, and regulations you have to follow, State Department ITAR's list, OFAC, all this other stuff. You can't just start dropping weapons into like a combat zone. You'll go to prison forever. And there's laws are there for a very good reason. I'll use two examples. I'll actually use 5 examples that were used in the lecture series. So this was developed or informed. This strategy was in part informed by lessons learned by both mistakes and successes of the United States' attempts to develop foreign forces, right? From the latter part of the Soviet era of the Cold War to today. And it went from the Contras up to Ukraine's assistance of anti-Assad forces in Syria. They all have different lessons to teach. So the Contras, right? Latter part of the Soviet era of the Cold War, 80s, where like, the Soviets are backing all these Sandinista terrorists all throughout Central and South America. Tragically, the Sandinistas still occupy Nicaragua. Like, they were killing women and children. We're like, shit, how do we push back against that? So they can't. There was an idea developed of Contras. And so they were trained for like 8 to 10 weeks. It allowed us to build force in scale very quickly. It was also like their tactical utility was spotty. It was a strategic wound in some cases because people did things they weren't supposed to do. Like, what does that mean? Sending people in to try and clear out the executionary element that of the IRGC and besiege is not something that's done haphazardly, right? People are like, well, I just need 8 weeks. Just train for 8 weeks. Yeah, 8 weeks is not enough. 8 weeks isn't even basic training. That's 1 week less than basic training that I received 30 years ago. That's not even AIT. My God, that's not.
AT is like twice that.
Yeah, I mean, like this, that's not a good idea. And so then we went the other route with the GAFE, right? This is in the late 90s, early aughts. We're like, oh shit, we have Hezbollah and Mullah regime and narco terrorists running all throughout Central and South America and Mexico. We're going to train up the Mexican army. We're not going to make the mistake that we did with the Contras. And we didn't. We made a new mistake. So like they were like, we're going to train the higher speed elements out of the Mexican army, and we're going to give them the best training ever. And we did. It was 32 weeks long. And this is people that were already soldiers to begin with. So they got training from like Rangers and Special Forces and Delta and the CIA, Israeli commandos, Mossad. They were trained very well.
This is basically why you got to vet the Artesh.
You know where I'm going. So the GAFE was very trained, very capable. They did not ensure that they had institutional loyalty. What ended up happening was the elements of the GAFE went, why should they die for $2,700 a day when they could become narco terrorists and be rich as shit? And that's exactly what happened. The GAFE, elements of them became the core elements of Los Zetas, and that became a huge strategic wound. So then you think
Los
about
Zetas cartel was incredibly cruel and incredibly well armed and incredibly organized.
Capable. Yeah, capable, because the core cadre were trained by us. Not that we were training them in like, oh my God, it's like all the conspiracy guys. We trained bin Laden. We didn't train bin Laden. Just saying like this was a lesson we learned. Even when we corrected for the previous mistake of the Contras, there was another thing we didn't do, which was to ensure that there was institutional loyalty and or the people you train are controlled by a national body. They maintain loyalty to that mission. So then we have like U.S. Special Forces in Afghanistan. We hit our stride. Definitely did a lot of good work there. What was the lesson we learned there? We definitely took down a lot of the Taliban, like a lot of our Northern Alliance friends that did a lot of work. There's a reason Nick Parmigiano and the other ones went overseas after dipshit Biden recklessly disengaged from Afghanistan with Operation Pineapple to save those guys, because a lot of those guys really, really did a lot. I'm not talking about the Afghan National Army. I'm talking about people like that were, interpreters, and although those guys were brave guys, they worked with us at risk of their family. So even though we did that, it didn't translate into a sustained political government. So we did another lesson, right? In Iraq, we went, we're going to train people to do counterinsurgency stuff with JSOC. And we did. We could surge that temple. During the surge, Staff Sergeant Bellavia talks about that in his book. He's a super cool dude. And we did. You also get operational exhaustion. So there's an issue with that. There's a lesson to be learned there, both positive and negative. Ukraine, right? Ukrainian special forces are helping anti-Assad elements inside Syria. They're training them in how to use things like small quadcopter drones. That's true. That allowed them to definitely punch well above their weight. What was the lesson we learned there? Well, whenever you transfer a capability, it's never neutral. Whenever you use something, enemies also learn and watch. So the very things that you've seen what goes on in, say, Syria and or Ukraine's gallant resistance and pushback to Putin's illegal war of aggression in Ukraine, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state. Well, Hezbollah learned. They're using some of the fiber optic long-range drone ideas against our Israeli allies. So what all 5 of those kinds of examples boil down to? It means there's a lot of different steps you need to follow before you even begin to think about training these people and organizing these people to do all of this.
Okay, do you mind if I summarize that?
Yeah.
Okay, first mistake, Contras, not enough training. Second mistake, Zetas, not enough vetting. Third mistake, Iraq. No, Afghanistan. Well, don't let Biden get into power. That's one of them.
that wasn't a mistake that we did.
Yeah, as Democrats.
We translate tactical utility into long-term sustainable political gains.
Make sure that's politically sustainable, because the situation in Afghanistan wasn't politically sustainable. Then we go to Iraq. In Iraq, we are seeing more success. Like it's very obvious by the situation we have in Iraq now.
Like, the guys burned out because the surge burned them out. Like they got tired.
Yeah, okay. The elements burned out, but you see the improvement. I mean, do you see the improvement when you see
that's very
the
true.
president come over and that they're fighting for the integrity and against the corruption? Does that make you a little proud?
Here's the issue. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying
a little bit proud, right?
Absolutely. I'm saying the lesson learned is, even though we were very successful in the counterinsurgency element because we did high tempo operations, that's true, that burned people and equipment out. Like, people went, well, we should just surge all the time. No, dickhead. Well, I don't understand. It worked before. Okay, surging is kind of like putting nitrous oxide in your gas tank. Yes, you will go 40, 50 miles an hour faster. You do so by burning out your fucking engine.
Yeah,
right?
Destroy your pistons.
So if you want to sit there and train these people to not only eliminate all the execution element inside Iran, read the Siege and IRGC douche canoes that definitely deserve to be given a fucking dirt nap, and they are to become the core cadre of, say, Neo-Savak, or a civilian-controlled intelligence agency that can defend Iran from other assholes in the region or opportunistic shitbags trying to take advantage of what they perceive to be instability and transition. You can't burn these guys out because they have more to do even after they kill all the old bad guys.
Okay, so don't train them for a 100-meter dash if you know this is going to be a marathon.
Yeah, train them to be Indian sprinters, right? So they can sprint when they need to and then go back to a much more sustainable, steady state. Well done.
Okay,
so before you even do
that's
all of
Iraq. This is then Ukraine. the lesson from Ukraine. Remember, what you do to them, they will learn and turn against you. That's the Ukraine lesson.
100%.
And now we're at Iran. Let's go over it. 1 to 7. What do these things mean?
So you want to make sure the people that you're drawing from are they're citizens and of lawful status. You want to make sure that the people have language skills, right? So they speak Farsi. Well, why don't we just drop a whole bunch of good old boys from Virginia? I love those good old boys from Virginia. They don't speak Farsi. They don't read any of the languages. They won't know what they're doing inside Tehran because they can't read the signs. Cultural understanding. Do they have a
They'll get
cultural?
lost.
Absolutely. Cultural understanding. This is actually very important. I lost some friends. I went to basic training because of this, the lack of this. That and Bill Clinton fucking denied my fellow soldiers, our fellow soldiers, heavy and light armor and AC-130 gunship support they were promised when Bill Clinton sent them in, Rangers in, to secure food assistance in Somalia, and then fucked them and ran a, behind their back diplomatic efforts against the very same warlords they told them to take out. So the cultural intelligence aspect is this. So when they send in our buddies, right, they're flying around in Black Hawks and they're having their feet over the edge because they want to get off the helicopter quick, because that's a lesson we learned from Vietnam, right? Viet Cong waited for the helicopter to get down and land. Now it has no energy in its main rotor, so it can't take off very quickly. And that's when they hit the fucking helicopter with like B-40 rockets. So like, fuck that. I'm not landing. I'm just going to hover off the ground. You just slide off the helicopter and we take off very quickly. In other words, they're trying to minimize the window of vulnerability. Well, in doing that, they were hanging, our buddies were hanging over the edge of the helicopter with their boots hanging over. And so the warlords said to the kids that they were pumping up full of drugs, you see those guys up there? They're showing their bottom of their boot because they're saying, fuck you. Showing the bottom of your shoe to somebody in that area is a way of saying you can go fuck yourself. Right.
So
And
like you have to be careful. I know this because you have to be careful when you cross the leg. If you're sitting down and you cross your legs, you got to be careful who you point your soul to.
So like if you don't know that, it's good to understand. This is like, that's a good example, right, of how, like, our buddies didn't know that they weren't insulting anybody. They didn't know. That said, even though they didn't know and they weren't insulting anybody, it doesn't mean that those warlords didn't misrepresent what was happening to, elicit more, to have more enlistment to send kids to go kill our fellow soldiers. That's why cultural understanding is very important. It's a good example of it. Psychological stability. Are these guys just crazy people like the two guys who were felons that went, yeah, they're going to go fight and kill in Ukraine because they just got a lot of violence in their blood and they figured, yeah, they can slake their bloodlust in a war zone? Yeah, that didn't turn out too well. They were like they got like picked up by law enforcement somewhere in Central America. Security reliability. Do these people like to talk a lot? Do they have an online presence? Physical performance. Are they healthy?
No fatties.
Foreign contacts. Are they have any family members inside Iran that might be used as leverage? These are things you'd have to look at before you even begin to train and equip these guys.
This is why when we say we can't just drop weapons, I'm sorry. This is why when we say we can't just drop weapons, we have to we keep explaining it. I want to even make a little segment out of this and just be able to, here you go. Here's the video. Here's why we can't do that.
Yeah. I'd totally do that. And look, I mean, the idea of just dispersing weapons everywhere, it's like a very last ditch effort. Oh shit. Where you're like, it's either that or like besieging IRGC, just slaughter everybody. At that point, you're like, well, it's better than just being slaughtered wholesale. And I'm not dismissing what happened in January. You know that those assholes killed so many of those kids. I'm saying that it's just a little less shitty, right? Like as far as, within the perspective of ensuring, safety for Iranian people, who I very much have come to love and very much respect. So this is the things you begin to think about. People are like, I'll just come into Armenia. And then, nothing against Armenia. I got a lot of love for them. and shout out to Nari, you know, like, yeah, dude, you don't even, do you even speak this language? Do you even know the area? Do you even know the fucking city? I mean, it's not like you can look up on your phone and go, okay, Google Maps, tell me where the local besieged shit is at, because they freaking have, the Mullah regime, now regime remnants, controls all the internet access, sans Starlink. I mean, that's things you'd have to think about, right? I mean, I understand why they thought that, because they were like, wow, these motherfuckers killed 100,000 kids in 2 days. They need to die. I absolutely agree.
But you can't get that main character syndrome, make it do something stupid.
Right. Exactly it. We come to the end of it. I'm going to close with this, and I'm going to make an appeal directly to President Trump. Not that he listens to me. Right now, we have a unique opportunity to end a threat that has plagued the United States and the region for 47 years. Mr. President, history is very much speaking to you. I hope you hear it 5 by 5.
Okay, can we get into some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry it took
Okay,
so long.
I've marked down some questions and comment. I don't know how many of these are even questioned. I just marked everything I saw that was kind of interesting. Wait a minute, this is the wrong one. Let me put it here. Some things that I saw kind of interesting. Okay. Kevin Shaw says Lockheed Martin just authorized by DoD to produce 2,000 newer improved Patriot missiles.
Indeed.
50% reduction in price. Will this help? I'm almost sure it will.
So those Patriot missiles are also, I mean, they're not as capable as the PAC-3 MSE. I actually saw the Lockheed Martin representative when he mentioned it on Fox News. It was a really cool interview. And to the CEO of Lockheed, you know I love you. Still want you to go more DE and less F-35, right? I'd give you more money than the F-35, just different departments. It's just, we had a good conversation.
Can you put DE on an F-35?
Yeah, although I was very much pushing for like fully autonomous weapon systems, artificial intelligence, orbital space dominance, space to ground strike capability, and directed energy. That's the areas I would put the money into.
Can an F-35 control a drone with DE?
So yeah, so they actually use laser communications. They look at that in orbit. That's sure. And you know, here's the issue. You don't want to have any network, if it's an open network, is vulnerable to being hacked, no matter how secure it is. Better to have fully autonomous weaponized drone swarms that only coordinate their efforts with each other, much like how insects, schools of fish, or flocks of birds do. There is no network to hack. That's why that's important. So yeah, they definitely produced the lower, and it's like a more streamlined, mass producible and or attritionable version of the PAC-3 MSE, and that's designed to kind of push back against the cost and production exchange ratio disadvantage that leveraging a PAC-3 against the $20,000 drone, right? I mean, he's right to do it. It's a very good idea. I don't know where their production run is at, like how long I know that they're pushing very hard to get it done for any number of reasons. I wouldn't be able to venture a guess as to like how long it will take to spin that up.
Now, my question is, if these aren't like as good as others, would you put them farther from the possible launch?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the capability. I mean, I'm more of a DE guy, and then you wouldn't have to worry about producing any interceptors because I'll just vaporize shit with a nickel.
Okay, so when you're saying like you're saying, but these might be like the latest Patriots. It's not like an old version.
They are the most current. This is like the loaner car version of the Ferrari that is the PAC-3 MSE.
Like the F-35 that we give NATO is not the same F-35 we have, but it's good.
This would be like, instead of an F-35, you're like giving someone a modernized version of an F-16.
Okay. But it's not the same X-16 you have.
No.
This isn't the same Patriot we give Taiwan or the same one we have at home.
No, it's got lesser capability. It can't take out as many of the like the broadest, the entire targets, all the targets within the broader target set that the PAC-3 MSE can service. This can't service all of them. This is like, okay, if you want to shoot down a Shahed or like a cruise missile or something along those lines, you know, it's not like I'm shooting a $3 million missile at a $20,000 drone. I think it's like maybe 500 grand. So I'm using
Like,
500 grand at a drone.
we know that the IRGC even shot a turkey. Like, okay, we're not going to give you an F-35, but we could give you these.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Next question. U.S. exports 40% world of munition. Well, that's not much of a question. It's more of a, we make money lots of ways. We be making money, man.
So I guess the statement is how do we have ammunition issues if we export 40% of the world's munitions, or maybe we could just redirect the exports to other things. Here's the problem with that. Those munitions are needed by those that are buying it too, because a lot of those people that buy those munitions are frontline allies in any number of those 5 theaters that I outlined that constitute an unacceptable risk of escalatory war, whether it's like Central and Eastern European member states of NATO, Ukraine, Taiwan, South Korea. I mean, like these, yeah.
Poland, South Korea, Taiwan, good buddies.
Poland is like got balls of solid rock, bro.
They're like the Texas of
Texas. Yeah, they really are. They really
like
are.
You got guns? You got guns? I want guns. What you got there? No, let me buy it.
Bro,
no, how you gonna whip that out if you're not gonna let me buy it?
We don't have anything. You gotta slow down, buddy. You gotta slow down. I'm cutting you off.
But I want more guns. I love guns.
Guys want everything.
They do. They do.
Yeah. No, I mean, they are stuff from the 70s. Yeah. Yeah, GPU.
Push of facts, isn't that for the GPU from the 70s? Yes, but we are adapting the tips and tails, basically, right?
Yeah. That's the whole brilliant. That's why it's so brilliant. We're using older munitions instead of using $3 million cruise missiles. We're going to use $30,000 to $80,000 GBU that we have hundreds of thousands of. Then we don't have to worry about. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right. We have a new member, Sarah. Yeah. Thank you for your membership. Thank you very much. And over here, Justin Padelno. Are either the 101st or the 82nd in station?
I wouldn't know.
Flashy Interlope says they are lined up for Cuba. So you got a question and the answer. We're not sure, but the chat is just, helping each other out here.
There you go.
Anyone know Jeff's handle on X?
Yeah, it's Cincinnati 001.
There you go. And I gotta follow you on my new monkey account. So you have a pet monkey. The sheiks told women we could see through their clothes with night vision goggles. That's fucked up. Just to get the women to hate the soldiers over there in Somalia, maybe. Wasn't that the Black Hawk Down era? Wasn't that fiasco back then?
The thermal, there was, and this is like anecdotal. This is when I was in grunt, right? Like I was an infantryman. This is like 1992.
Okay.
Which made Uncle Jeff feel really old as fuck. It's so like my buddies who were like 11 Hotel, which is like anti-tank, and they had dragons. That's definitely telling my age, like a dragon anti-tank weapon, which is like before toes and shit. They had like thermal vision, so they had like you had to carry all the like batteries and bottles and coolant and all this other shit. So one of the things they showed me, they told me, and I didn't believe them. They're like, if you look through the thermal vision, you didn't have very much. You're not supposed to use it this way, but grunts are gonna grunt. And they're like, you can totally tell if a woman is on her period because it'll show a heat bloom by her. I'm like, that's not true. Like, that's fucking. I don't believe that. And he's like, well, here, like we got that woman over there. Let's see if she's did. I'm like, you're gonna make me do this thing. So I looked through. I'm like, oh my god. So it's like extra, like it just showed a blob. It's not like it's you looking through like X-ray vision, So, I mean, that's not the same thing as what these assholes are saying. It's not like
nowadays
like nods and going, "Oh my god, I get to see all her her clitoris. It's great. I can't wait to use this Jergens in the alternate fighting position. Yeah, nobody's doing that. That's all bullshit.
No. No, but the sheiks might tell people that because the people over there in Somalia don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
Another thing is what you do nowadays, chat, is you have your own like period tracker and you start tracking it. That way you know when to have ice cream and chocolate ready so you don't have to go through all the fights. You know how they get. You know how they get. they get really you got to keep track because if not they get so mean. Like I'm a very sensitive monkey and having fights that I don't understand. You ever have fights you don't understand? Like, what is this about?
Just tongue punch in the fart box, bro. It ends all fights. Look, you got tongue punch chicks in the fart box or the fucking terrorists win. That's how we sit there and beat terrorism and Islamist fundamentalism. One tongue punch to the fart box at a time.
Yeah, or go full Dracula and tongue wrestle the jelly bean.
Yeah, I have my blood wings. It's just
okay. So Effie says even handshaking you have to do right. This is why cultural training is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't just like the handshake.
100%.
They might think it's gay and be offended, or they might think it's too strong and you're challenging.
Their left hand, it's a way of insulting people in that because they use their left hand to wipe their asshole.
Well, culturally, I think, like as far as I know, okay, first of all, in Latino communities, you don't do that. And it's not about because we wipe with any hand. Like, you do what you got to do. You go with the right one, because if you want more command and control, make sure the area is completely covered and secured. Right. You might use your right hand or your left, like whatever you're comfortable with. But when shaking hands in the Hispanic and Latino community, as far as I know, it's customary to use your right hand. And I think because most people, the right hand is a weapon hand. If you have it open in a gesture of salute, then you're not hiding your weapon hand. You understand? But usually it's the right hand. And with Americans, I've never had an American give me their left hand. Even ones that weren't in the military. So that might be a worldwide thing, but I wouldn't have think of doing it. But like I understand why it might be even more offensive in other cultures.
Yeah. Somebody had asked a question about subs being reloaded in Bahrain.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I've seen some videos and talk about how you could some of the ships you could reload at sea. I don't know if that's something you could do for us.
We are just developing and like banging that out.
Yeah, this was a new video. This wasn't old.
Underway or at sea is being done right now, both doctrinally and like how you do it and all that, in no insignificant manner in preparation for Taiwan. That's exactly why they're doing that. As it stands right now, to the best of my knowledge, again, this is part of the pause. We're like, why don't we just keep? Well, okay, so like, the initial strike on Iran used a lot of TLAMs. They were like, this is me, Tomahawk modified submarine, fire your entire payload in sections of 8. They're like, oh shit, yes sir. Off they go. They're bingo missiles. They got to go all the way back to like Guam to then reload and then come back. Right? That takes a while. I mean, it takes like 2 weeks to get there, and then takes a while to load them, and then you got to come back. That's another 2 weeks. That's again why 5x5 was set up the way it was. Extreme time, like unbelievable shock because of extreme strike compression. Because the munitions and platforms used are plentiful, cheap, and can be delivered at scale. It leaves them no fucking chance to adapt. Zero.
Okay. I was wondering about that. So that is new. I thought it was new, but I was thinking, well, the stuff they show on the civilian side, it's already pretty old. But if it's probably just a few years old, not super old. Like they're starting to integrate it.
Replenishing like food and shit is not the same as reloading missiles into a missile tube.
You got to
So
kind of like do it
yeah,
from the top down. It's very precise.
all, yeah. You can't just like do that. Like, okay, this isn't like, I don't know, 1810, where you can be like, okay, boys, just hand over the cannonballs and the bags of powder. It's not like that, right? It's easy.
I think
It's a
some
lot
of the
easier
newer
to do that
missiles,
with food. You could do the replenishment at sea, you know, just like like they have like a supply ship come up and do. They did that in the Second World War. They would like, you know, offload food and shit. Sure, that's a lot easier because food, right? And you can just take that down into a hull. That's not the same as going, okay, this is like a ballistic missile submarine that's been modified to fire cruise missiles, and that has to go down, and this is all sensitive, and it can't be done with the.
oh, I'm talking ships. I'm not even talking submarines.
Even ships, even like, so you have cruise missile, like the vertical launch cells in like you know, like an Arleigh Burke cruiser, well, you know, a destroyer cruiser. Sure.
And the thing I saw, it's
Takes
like it was
a
just like a big box, like a rectangle, a big
Yeah.
like a long Amazon box, and they were
Mhm.
just replacing box, the empty box with a, which made it kind of easier because I think
No.
the earlier kind you
Hell,
couldn't even
should I
fucking
have
do
your
that.
ship doing this.
No, that's the
Right.
problem. That's what they said is the problem, and they
Yeah.
were like kind of showing some experimental new shit that they were doing
Yeah.
to
Replenish at sea.
to replenish at sea. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't think they're doing that for the subs yet.
well, they're working on it. However far it is, how far along it is, I don't know. And even if I did, I probably can't recall it because it's Sunday at almost 11 p.m. Right, do my
Yeah,
best, buddy.
yeah. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave the show on the 5x5. I don't think I want to pretty much get into anything else. It's a little bit of a shorter show, but we went in deep on one topic. We stayed in there, hit the pocket, just deep stroked that topic really, really hard. I hope you are all satisfied with our performance. You know, we tried to make it airtight, get it in from, you know, from both sides, and you know, for your complete and full satisfaction, you know, there was a little bit of ribbing, but it's ribbed for your pleasure.
Hopefully, you guys found it somewhat, you know, informative, and it gives you like a toolbox and a flashlight to think about not only just this particular strike, like this campaign that was suggested, just how you think about the broader idea of U.S. campaigns against the regime remnants or just in general. It kind of hopefully gives you like a, you know, I'm not saying appreciation as if you don't appreciate. I'm just saying there's a lot of things there. There are a lot of moving parts there, and this only covered some of it. I mean, the entire policy paper is like almost 1,000 pages long. That's a lot.
Yes, this is a condensed version.
Yeah,
and I tried to bring the layman's grunt version of questions you guys might have.
Yeah,
but it's actually been fun. Like I find this very entertaining. I hope you guys
did
in
you
the
like
chat.
it, Sketch?
Oh my god, you know I did. I've been waiting. Like I've been wanting to get
I
the full
hope we
scope
do.
5x5. I wanted to know like your full depth, your full girth. It was fabulous.
Absolutely, in the regime in 120 hours, they are dead.
I'm kind of like being a little funny with it, but this is kind of a serious topic. Not kind of, like absolutely a serious topic. And you know, I'm gonna end by blessing Uncle Jeff,
Oh,
blessing the chat, blessing Iran, blessing America, blessing the whole world, especially the chat. Bless you, chat. Bless your health, bless your wealth, bless your plans, bless your family, bless your loved ones, bless everything you touch. Peace.
I'm Israel High, Slava Ukraini, Kuba Libre, Long Live America, Javi Shah, Payande Iran.
Payande Iran.
Love you guys.